like to call to order the council meeting of December 14th. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardak. Peg Conway.
Here.
Phil Doring.
Here.
Ed Hattenbach. Here. Tom Muthing.
Here.
Ray Warren.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Larmer.
Here.
Kevin Frank.
Here.
Chief Wallace. Here. Rick Kay.
And if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight, which is in accordance with our charter provides that at the first regularly scheduled meeting of the new council, and the new council was sworn in accordance with the charter on December 1st, and our charter further provides at the first regularly scheduled meeting that we elect a mayor and vice mayor for the council term. So we will now consider nominations for mayor.
Thank you. It is my pleasure this evening to nominate Tom Muthing for a second term as Amberley's mayor. The past 2 years have been very positive and productive for the village, due in significant part to Tom's leadership. He brings a methodical, level-headed approach to council business, keeping a focus on effective process while also following through on matters of detail. He is dedicated to the long-term well-being of the entire community. So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we elect Tom Muthing as mayor. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so I thank you for the election as mayor, and it really, I've commented on this in the past, that it really is an honor to serve a community like Amberley, and it's a real honor to work with the members of this council, and I look forward to the next 2 years, so thank you. We will now consider nominations for vice mayor.
I move to nominate Natalie Wolf to be vice mayor for her third consecutive term as vice mayor.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we elect Natalie Wolf as vice mayor for the next 2 years. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to Aye.
Do you want to say it?
I just want to echo Tom's sentiments. It's an honor to serve on Amberley Council. We've lived here quite a number of years, and it's still a thrill to serve the community, and especially nice to serve under such a great mayor as Tom.
So we will now, Kevin, administer the oaths of office for the mayor and vice mayor.
Sure. Do you want to just standing here, or would you like?
I think here's one. Should we do it that way? I, Tom Muthing, do solemnly Before we move on to committee appointments, which is the next item we have to consider, I wanted to recognize Councilman Doring, who wanted to just share something with us all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we just had all the good news, now we got the bad news. Tonight, I'm announcing my resignation from council on or before December 31st. I am not at all happy that I have to do this. The reason for my resignation is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. This has now become necessary due to the complete change in health care benefits provided by the Ohio Public Retirement System, which is also called OPERS. OPERS has redone the health care plan for the retirees, and they're now using a health care reimbursement account known as an HRA, effective January the 1st of 16. This was done as the current health plan by OPERS was not financially sustainable under the current health care costs throughout this country. As we all know, many health care plans or many pension plans and so forth have had to reduce or eliminate health care benefits. Being retired from the University of Cincinnati through the OPERS system, I am considered as an OPERS reemployed retiree as a member of Amberley Village Council. Since both are members of the same retirement system, that's the reason I'm considered retired, because OPERS is governed Amberley Village and also University of Cincinnati. Under the Affordable Care Act, I will be unable to receive any funds through that HRA as long as I was in an eligible OPERS position. Under these rules, I could not even waive my salary and still be eligible to be still on council and then receive benefits. The financial impact to me would be huge if I remained on council. It is very depressing that the ACA was rushed through and passed by Congress without any member ever reading or understanding the full document. It is absolutely pathetic that the ACA prevents individuals such as myself from serving in their communities as an elected official, even at no salary. Let us all hope that Washington can someday fix this problem, but it is what it is. I'm planning on staying active with the village, so most of you are going to see me attending committee meetings and council meetings and so forth. I'm also working with the mayor to see what I can do as a volunteer for the village itself. I want to thank you all for allowing me to serve for this period of time, and it's just unfortunate that the law just isn't very good. Thank you very much.
And Bill, thank you for your service, and I'm sure we will want to invite you to our January meeting to better recognize your service. And we have an item later on in the agenda where one of our members of the Planning Commission has also been forced to resign for the same reason. And, you know, again, a very unfortunate situation where people cannot choose to serve their community in a capacity just because of a badly worded act. So we'll move on to the appointment of committees, and I've circulated the appointment of committees. The one thing I wanted to mention is that you'll note on the committee appointments that as far as the Income Tax Review Board, that the current Income Tax Review Board, there's lines through each of the three members. We have to reappoint the Income Tax Review Board. This is also part of the change in the income tax law that was passed by the Ohio Senate and Representative and signed into law, and then we changed our ordinance this past year. So there will be a new Income Tax Review Board appointed early in 2016. And so that'll be a separate appointment coming in the future. But I hereby move that we approve the committees as presented, and that these committees, obviously, once we get beyond December 31st and Bill's replacement is made, these committees will obviously be subject to change. And I will comment later on in the mayor's report as far as the process that we will go through as far as replacing Councilman Dorn. So I hereby move that we approve these committees.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the committees as presented to each of the members, and that these are the committees that will serve until the committees are changed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted, it passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is our minutes, and we have first the approval of our regularly scheduled... Oh, I'm sorry. Our next item on the agenda is the appointment of the solicitor, treasurer, and clerk of council.
And I'd like to move at this time that we waive 3 readings for each of these.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings on the appointment of our solicitor, treasurer, and clerk of council. Please call the roll with respect to that.
I think I'm going to have to abstain, maybe just leave altogether because Stacy left and is on the issue on this ordinance position of prosecutor, so I was going to defer to what Kevin or Scott has. I think in previous years, I think I've just left. So I think that would probably be appropriate this time before you start.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you don't technically physically have to leave, but you shouldn't participate in any discussions or vote certainly on it. And I would say, I know we've combined them, and I told Tom before the meeting it was okay to combine them for waiving the 3 readings if that's what you vote on. I don't think you voted on it yet.
Right.
But take each of these in turn when you talk about the ordinance itself.
Right. Okay, so we have a motion to waive the 3 readings on the ordinances, and that's what we're considering first. It has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings, so please call the roll with respect to that motion.
Peg Conway,
Yes.
Bill Doring,
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes.
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, next we will consider the ordinance for the appointment of Kevin Frank as village solicitor.
I move, I move that we appoint Kevin Frank as the village solicitor.
Now you can second.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-15, appointing Kevin Frank as village solicitor. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock. Peg Conway,
Yes.
Bill Doring,
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes?
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
As mentioned, Rich, even though the motion was to appoint me, the way we've worded it, the paperwork, Stacy's included within that. I know it wasn't clear when we just went through it, but
Okay, so please have it noted in that Councilman Bardak abstained from that particular motion. And it is appropriate that we have a motion to have this been done on an emergency basis.
I move that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of public peace, health, and safety, and should go into effect forthwith. The reason for such emergency is the necessity of maintaining continuity of legal representation for the village. Upon the affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members elected to council, this ordinance shall go into effect, go into immediate force and effect without delay.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we recognize ordinance 2015-15 as an emergency. Please call the roll.
Peg Conway,
Yes.
Bill Doring,
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach,
Yes.
Tom Muthing,
Yes?
Ray Warren, Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, next, and again, in accordance with the charter, we should consider the appointment of Rick Kay as treasurer.
I move that we appoint Rick Hay as village treasurer.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we appoint Rick Kay as treasurer for the village for the next 2 years. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
I move that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of public peace, health, and safety, and should go into effect forthwith. The reason for such emergency is a necessity of immediately providing for all the village the services of the treasurer. Upon affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members elected to council, this ordinance shall go into effect immediately, should go into immediate force and effect without delay.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we recognize ordinance 2015-16 as an emergency measure. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock.
Apparently I can now vote for this one, so yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes?
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, and finally, and this is the final appointment as provided under the charter that we need to make at the first regularly scheduled meeting, is the appointment of the clerk of council. Is there a
Natalie
motion?
wants to do it.
Oh. I move that council appoint Nicole Browder as clerk of council for the coming term.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we appoint Nicole Browder as clerk of council in accordance, and this is ordinance 2015-17. It has been moved and seconded, so please call the roll.
Rich Bardock. Yes. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes?
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay. This ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, and shall go into effect forthwith. The reason for said emergency is the necessity of immediately providing for the village the services of the clerk. Upon the affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members elected to council, this ordinance shall go into immediate force and effect without delay.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we recognize ordinance 2015-17 as an emergency measure. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes?
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, and on behalf of the entire council, congratulations to Kevin and Rick and Nicole for an appointment to another 2 years. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting of November 9th, which was included in your advance package. Are there any corrections or amendments to those minutes? If not, we can consider the minutes from the November 9th meeting approved, and also our minutes from our special council meeting of November 24th. This was a council meeting that was called to consider the appraisal of the village manager, and the minutes have been included in the package. Are there any corrections to those minutes? If not, we can consider those minutes approved. Next item on the agenda is our finance report from October of 2015.
For October 2015, we have concluded that financial month and have prepared an item in the council packet and a few comments in regards to the October report. The earnings tax collections for the month of October totaled just a little over $247,000, and this is down about 24% from October of 2014's collection, which was about $330,000. Our year-to-date collection of earnings tax is $2.3 million. which is down about 6.62% compared to last year. And that has been consistent for most of the year, that we've been down about 6% throughout the year. But the earnings tax continues to be the village's primary revenue source. And our estimate for earnings tax for this year was originally at $2.8 million. That has since been revised internally for us at about $2.6 million. So we will realize less than that. And I'll come back to a couple of these points in a minute. I also want to mention the local government fund, which is a small source of revenue that we receive from through the state of Ohio. That totaled $4,900 this past month. So far we've taken in $54,000 from the local government fund. The revenue for the entire month of October totaled a little over $316,000. I mentioned that we've collected 2.3 in regards to earnings tax. So we've collected 83% of the earnings tax that was projected for the year. On the overall revenue for the village, we had estimated a collection of $4.4 million, and we've taken in $4.1 million, so we're about 91% in regards to the collection of revenue. The expenses for the month of October were a little over $300,000, and our budget for the year of 2015 was $4.3 million, and so far we have spent $3.4 million of that budget, which equates to about 79% of the budget has been spent. And that in comparison to the number of months that have passed, which is about 83% of the month of the year has passed as of the end of October. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the revenues and expenses because you're going to see this when you talk about the budget this evening. But the earning tax collection, it has been consistent with with being down this year. But what has helped the village significantly are some other revenue sources, albeit they're not large. But the collection of the JED's monies was something that when we entered into an agreement with Sycamore Township a few years ago, that is a revenue source now that's generating over $100,000 for the village. So that would be our share, our cut of it, and the expense of collecting that. And then in addition to that, the village, we've had increased court fines, collection of court fines. We have rent that is coming in from a cell tower on the north site, which has been a good revenue source for the village. And we have seen some increase in the amount of interest that we are receiving. So those have been to the positive for the village. On the expense side of it, the expenses for the village are typically high during the month of December, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, probably the most predominant is that we have 3 payrolls in December. So it's not very often you have 3 payrolls in a month, but in this situation we do. We also will be paying one item that's on the agenda this evening, Resolution 2015-26, which is our risk management, our insurance, property and casualty insurance. That payment only comes out of our budget once a year, and it occurs during the month of December. So that's another reason that we typically have higher expenses during the month of December. We also will be making a payment for EMS services. We have the contract with Deer Park Silverton along with Gulf Manor, and so that payment is made typically in December as well. And then the last item I'd want to mention is that there is a rather large tax refund that is coming out of December expenses. So all those combined make December a higher expense month. The projection that I've made is that we will conclude the year with a end-of-year unencumbered general fund balance of about $4.3 million. We're currently at $4.5 million, but as I mentioned, expenses are high in December, so that'll bring that down. And just some of the credit of how some of this unfolds is that the budget the council set was $4.3 million. Our projection is that we will have spent $4.1 million. So we will be under by at least about $200,000 as we close out the year. Part of that is due to being successful in obtaining grants. We had some items in the capital budget that we were able to get grants for, and we were also certainly successful with being able to save some money on certain projects. And in addition, there were some things that the village just did not buy. Even though they were budgeted, we did not move forward on some of those items for various reasons. And then one of the other factors, and this can be a big factor, is that when you have vacancies within the organization, you're typically saving money in the short term. You might be paying some out long term, but vacancies typically help the village save money as well. But the one point I'd want to make is that the culture of the organization is to continue to look at expenses, look at them, be very judicious about our expenses, and to contain those costs and try to manage those village resources so that we can come in under budget, and even especially in a time when revenues might be decreasing, because this next year, as you'll hear in the budget, we'll be having less revenue coming into the village with the loss of an employer here in the village. So I just wanted to make those comments in regards to how we're looking, even though I give an October report, it sort of advances you to the end of the year. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any questions for the manager? If not, we will now move on to, we have at least one guest speaker here this evening. I'm not sure that the other one is here, but Representative Driehaus, who is our state representative, is here to talk to us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on your elections. They went so much smoother than what I'm used to, so I'm jealous. So I'm just here to provide an update. I was here, it's been a while back, and thought it was maybe time to circle back and say hello and let you know what we're doing at the state level, and then offer my help with whatever you have moving into the future. So we are a mid-biennial budget, and we're in the middle of the biennium right now. And so this is the time when we start to consider capital budget needs. And I talked to Officer Wallace about this. I did send out an email about just trying to jog people's thoughts about maybe anything that might qualify for the capital budget ask, because we have dollars available and we have a process by which we divvy out those dollars, and no reason that Amberley shouldn't consider maybe partaking in the process. And so I sent out the criteria. The challenge is that if you have a project that you'd like to move forward in Amberley, it has to meet the criteria of the state. And so that becomes a bit of a challenge, and I know Officer Wallace and I talked about this a little bit. There has to be a nexus with the state, so a relationship with the university, or a relationship with ODNR, or an arts organization, something like that. But I provided that information to you with the criteria and with a two-sheeter to fill out if you have any projects in mind. If you have questions as to whether or not they might qualify, I can run them through our policy guys and let you know pretty quickly whether or not there's a nexus, and if not, maybe we try to figure that out, or just get you thinking about the state as a partner, because I did this in Walnut Hills in the last cycle, and while they didn't qualify, the project that they wanted to move forward didn't qualify, they did qualify for something else in the future, and they thought about the state of Ohio and historic tax credits because they had already gone through this process with the state. So I wanted to offer it up to Amberley and the rest of the 31st House District, but tonight to Amberley, to get you kind of thinking about how the state can be a partner in some of what you're doing, especially economic development projects or arts projects moving forward. That said, there are two other things I wanted to touch on. I hate to say I enjoyed the budget discussion, but I did. I'm the ranking member on the Finance Committee in Columbus, and it's very interesting to hear you talk about your budget, your numbers, and the impact of what we do on your budget. LGF, for instance. So, the local government fund, as you know, we've been fighting to try to maintain this fund. It has been dramatically reduced in the last few years, and I apologize for that. That was not my decision. What has been set up in lieu of the LGF is the LGIF. It's a local government innovation fund. And so essentially, it's part of the LGF savings, moved over into a different fund. There's criteria set up for that fund, and then you can come back and apply for that money. That was just expanded in a recent bill before the legislature, and so I would encourage you to take a look at that if you haven't already, because the dollars are being expanded there, and you might qualify for money there. And in addition to that, there is a fund being set up for safety services. And we've talked before about the state trying to bring some resources into safety services here in Amberley. So this fund that's being set up, the criteria is just now being established, is specifically for safety services. And so I will get that information out to you as soon as we have it in the office, so that maybe you can, again, think about trying to qualify for some of those dollars. So it's all financial news really for me tonight. As many of you may know, I've represented Amberley for the last 3 years as part of the 31st House District. I am termed out in 2016. I regret it. I would stay if I could. I'm unable because I'm termed out. There are 7 people interested in running to represent you guys. You should be flattered. 7 to my knowledge, because people just keep jumping in. But many of the folks, I think, have actually been out to see you, and they're very good, upstanding, well-qualified individuals. So fingers crossed that person it represents the district, but I will help in any way I can to make that transition as smooth as possible for the incoming person that represents the 31st House. I'm hoping to serve on the county commission in the future. We'll see how that goes. And so one other thing I wanted to share with you. I am working on some legislation with Jonathan Deaver in a bipartisan way to establish B corporations in the state of Ohio. B corporations are benefit corporations. So you have a corporation that is for profit, but in addition to making a profit to sustain the business and to provide income to the folks that run the business, there is a secondary purpose, which is a benefit. It's most likely like a non-for-profit kind of benefit of the corporation's choice. So it could be anything. It could be any kind of benefit that serves the community. These are called B Corps. So that's like a double tiered corporation that has really 2 things in mind: making profit and being a benefit to the community. The B Corps, as established in other parts of the country, have a 3rd tier that has an environmental component. And so you have to be as green as possible, or at least consider the environment as you move forward with whatever, and these businesses can be anything, any kind of business, but they have to take into account the environment as they move forward or grow or whatever they do. And so we are looking to establish these in the state of Ohio. It is permissive legislation, and so it just allows for B Corps in Ohio. We've been asked to do this. Cincinnati actually, the city council passed this, and then it came to us because they can't do it without the state passing this law. And so we're working on it. I wanted to let you know. I know a lot of folks in Amberley in particular think about the benefit to the community and to the kind of the common good as you all move forward with your business interest and otherwise. And so I want to make sure that you knew about that, because when we finally do get it passed, it might be something that folks in this community and throughout the city in particular are most interested in. So I just am, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. I'm sure you're reading about it in the paper or not. But any questions or anything that I can do for you in the next year while I'm still your state rep, let me know. And I will keep you in the loop, especially with the safety services money, to make sure that you know what the criteria are for that and know the deadlines to qualify for it.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. On the safety services, do you believe that's would be earmarked for police services? Would it be, could it be used for other types of services?
I think it's fire and police
Okay.
in particular. Yeah, and I think police in particular.
Any other questions? If
Thank you
not,
again.
Well, on behalf of the council, thank you for your service these past 3 years, and good luck in the future.
Thank you, and congratulations to you guys.
Okay, next we'll move on to, is Ben Lindy here? Okay, so we'll move on to recognition of service. And as I mentioned earlier, Larry McGraw has served on the Planning Commission and served admirably over these years. And unfortunately, Larry also has to resign. And Larry sent a letter to Scott and I think about a month ago, similar to Councilman Doring, being willing to, he just wanted to serve. He was more than willing to waive any compensation, but that just does not work out. So tonight we're here to recognize Larry for his excellent service. So I have a little token.
just want to say, to thank Amberley Council and also my chairman, Richard Braddock. I say Amberley Village is in really good hands. And thank you very much.
The wedding coordinator?
And the flags haven't even been moved back yet, so. I know, I had to turn all the way around. That's a nice plaque. Wow.
Okay, the next item on the agenda also relates to the Planning Commission. Scott Wolf has served on the Planning Commission, I think, for 2 terms, and has again been very instrumental in helping out through a period where we went through rezoning on the north site, considered a lot of things, and as we look forward, we may be considered rezoning on the Amberley Green site, et cetera. So I think it's critical that we have good thought process as we move forward, and Scott has definitely demonstrated excellent thought process as we move forward. So I hereby move that we nominate Scott Wolf for another 4-year term to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we appoint Scott Wolf to a further 4-year term to the Planning Commission. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted, it passes unanimously. And thank you very much for your service. Oh, you
I'm
abstained.
abstaining.
I'm sorry. That makes sense. Please note in the minutes that the vice mayor abstained from the vote. But Scott, thank you for your service and your leadership on the committee. The next item on the agenda is we have a new police officer in our community. And I would first turn it over to the chief to kind of introduce Nick to our community.
Okay. Back in October, we actually had a vacancy. In October, we began the hiring process. We had around 35 applicants that participated in the process, from the physical fitness through the interview process. It was a long, thorough process, and at the end of the process, Nick Mercer was the one chosen. Just to tell you a little bit about Nick, Nick graduated from Winton Woods High School in 2004. After that, he attended the Ohio State University, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree. Nick was back in Cincinnati, where he actually became a police officer and started working at Green Hills. Park District before that. Cheviot, sorry. He worked with Cheviot, and then he actually currently now is at the Hamilton County Park District. It was a long, thorough process, and Nick stood out, and he was a unanimous decision from the staff as well as all the personnel involved in the hiring process. So I'm happy to introduce Nicholas Mercer as the newest officer, and the mayor is going to come up and swear him in. Now, we're going to have Nicholas's wife come forward, Emily, and with her is their son, Bo, and Emily's going to pin on his badge.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a resident to speak, so I invite Robert Herbert to the podium. And if you could please just state your name and address and then you have 3 or 4 minutes to speak.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Robert Herbert, 2480 Larkfield Drive. My wife and I have been living in Amberley since 1997. Great place to live. We've raised 3 daughters. They're 15, 16, and 17 now. So we like it here. And thank you for hearing my proposal on the usage of Amberley Green. Get my glasses. I've been retired from the Hamilton County Engineer's Office since 2012. And this is my friend Fred and I, Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop is our proposal for Amberley Green. The Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop will be a place where patrons can learn about and play disc golf, buy disc golf equipment, receive personal expert instruction, and socialize with other disc golfers. They can also learn how to properly throw a frisbee, perhaps receive a haircut, work on their soccer skills, bocce ball skills, and enjoy a cool refreshment with their friends afterwards. Our main goal is to develop the Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop as part of an overall family experience. My friend Fred Salas and I, he's present back here, we have 55 combined years experience playing disc golf. We've traveled all over the country playing. We are both successful tournament players, having won local, state, national, and international events. Fred has owned 2 businesses associated with disc golf and was inducted into the International Disc Golf Hall of Fame in 2007 for his involvement as a tournament director for 22 years, course designer. He designed or co-designed 9 local courses, course installer, maintainer of courses, and as a disc golf professional player. He is also a member of the Kentucky Disc Golf Hall of Fame and has been nominated for the Ohio Disc Golf Hall of Fame. We believe that Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop could offer more than just disc golf. We would like to offer, if possible, haircuts by appointment. Fred is a licensed barber, and he currently has a barber shop. A par 3 foot golf course, bocce ball, disc golf lessons, a driving net for disc golf, and ball golf, and perhaps even offer cross-country skiing during the winter months, something not offered anywhere else in the Cincinnati area. A nice advantage of a disc golf shop would be having someone on site for up to 16 hours per day to curb or eliminate vandalism to the park and park facilities. The market. Disc golf is one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S. and other countries. Cincinnati is a hotbed for disc golf, being in the top 5 disc golf destinations in the country. With 35 disc golf courses in the tri-state area, there's a large local player base to serve. The grounds, once used by Crest Hills Country Club, could be used to create a disc golf course superior to any other course in the area, and not only be a favorite course for local players, but become a course which would attract traveling players from all over the world. The course would be both challenging and beautiful, with its rolling hills and mature trees mixed with open areas of lush grass. Financial projections. We would expect the Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop to be moderately profitable after the second year in business. We would achieve this by leveraging our local location, knowledge of our competitors, customers, and the market. Objectives. We plan to make Amberley Village Disc Golf Shop the central place for information about Cincinnati disc golf for local and traveling disc golfers, and offer a wide variety of activities to other park users. To achieve a market share in the region for golf discs and disc golf accessories. To be active in the disc golf community and provide continual reinvestment through sponsorship of disc golf tournaments. Recruit and utilize volunteer efforts to build and maintain disc golf courses and interests in the area. Support family events at Amberley Village Disc Golf Course. Mission. In this fast-paced world, we want to offer park users a relaxing yet active round of disc golf. Enjoy a round of bocce ball or foot golf. We would like to teach a 5-year-old or an 80-year-old how to properly throw a frisbee, because no one should go through life without knowing how to throw a frisbee. Thank you. If approved, we could start designing an 18-hole course, likely being ready for play in April 2016. Many courses in the tri-state have walking trails on the same grounds, and we would design the course to avoid conflicts with walkers and their dogs. Fred and I both own dogs, so we get dog owners. The pro shop could possibly be located in one room of the former clubhouse, preferably facing the course. Thanks for your time. Yours truly and Fred Salas. Are there any questions? We would like to meet again, if possible, if you have any other questions or details that you would need to know.
Okay, Councilman Doran?
Question, how much land would the course take?
That is
need?
negotiable. Obviously, we wouldn't need the entire 18 holes of the ex-golf course.
Can you give us a ballpark, like
About half.
so about 65 or so acres?
Yes, but let me explain. The way a disc golf course meanders through the course, it uses a finite amount of area per hole, and the existing area right adjacent to it would be unaffected. There's buffers. We allow for safety buffers.
Okay. So you would be responsible for maintaining the grass cutting for that 65 acres?
That again would be negotiable.
Okay.
The way the grass is cut currently would be sufficient for us. A disc is about this big, and they're very hard to lose, unlike golf balls. I've been playing golf since I was 8 years old, and I know how difficult it is to find a golf ball. Our discs are much less difficult to find.
And my final comment is the clubhouse itself, I'm not an expert on buildings here, but I know it's been, quote, A, condemned, and B, it's got full of asbestos, and C, it's been, before the village took it over, the vandals got in there and stripped all the copper and so forth out of it, so I'm not sure it's even usable at this stage. So what does that do to your proposal about a place for the...
We would have to change our plans somewhat, but I think we could still have a course. There are other courses in the greater Cincinnati area which do not have plumbing and other facilities such as you're speaking.
Okay.
So a disc golf course, what does it require other than installing those
Baskets?
baskets?
We could use grass tees, and we would move them around so the ground wouldn't become overly taxed.
Is this something that could be done on a temporary basis?
Yes. In fact, we would be open to having a local tournament, which would take one day. We could bring in baskets and remove them the same day. That would be perhaps a trial for you to see how many golfers would attend and how much the course could be used.
Are there-
Just a comment. Thank you for coming. Would it be prudent to move this to the Land Committee for a richer conversation?
I was just going to mention, I don't know how much you're aware that the Land Development Committee has been meeting over the past couple years, but very frequently over the last 6 months to consider some proposals with respect to the former golf course. And I think these types of things are good ideas to put into that as far as the use. Now, obviously, we're looking at trying to use the former golf course in a way that, could generate more revenues for the village and so forth.
Right.
But, between the Land Use Committee and our Parks Committee, someone will be back in contact with you. I don't think the idea of trying to get something set up to open up a disc course in April of 2016 is going to be realistic, given everything else going on.
That was a wish.
Right. But, we appreciate your thought, and I think, where thoughts can then generate other thoughts and so forth, so we will be in touch.
Sure. It could even, just to throw this out there right now, I'm nearly finished. It could be even like the Grizzly at Kings Island. They have both a golf course and a lot of housing. It could be designed that way as well. And that would provide, a beautiful buffer area between housing. So just to throw that out there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to committee reports, and the Finance Committee has a number of items for this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. First item on the agenda is an adjustment to 2015 appropriations for the Employee Health Insurance Agency Fund. The purpose of this is the fact that we have had employees contributing up to 15% for the cost of premiums if they select the Platinum B plan, and there are more people now who are choosing to buy up to the Platinum A. In addition, there are several more employees who are participating in the health insurance plan. Accordingly, I would like to introduce ordinance number 2015-18, an ordinance appropriating funds for the fiscal year in the amount of $10,000 for the Employee Health Insurance Agency Fund. So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-18. Are there any questions?
I just want to make a comment that this is more of an accounting procedure. This is no additional cost to the village. This is simply with the employees having withheld. We just need to increase the appropriation to cover that additional amount. So there's no cost at all to the village for this.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-18, appropriating funds for fiscal year 2015. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardak.
Here.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
I'm sorry?
Ed.
Yes.
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 Tom Ewing.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf. Yes.
The other part of this ordinance is that we would like to pass this in a single reading.
That's not necessary.
Not necessary? Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2015-19, Also, an accounting motion for appropriation for the Kenwood Southwest JEDS Agency Fund, where we are, have increased collections from the employees of the JEDS, and this will result in another $39,000 to be distributed to Amberley Village. Accordingly, I would move to adopt ordinance number 2015-19, ordinance appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2015
Just one thing, that 39,000 is just additional distribution.
to Amberley Village.
No, it's to Sycamore Township also, isn't it?
Not necessarily Sycamore Township, but there are two other funds. There's Amberley that gets the bulk of it, and then there are two other funds that we have to administer.
Stand corrected?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-19, appropriating JEDS funds for the fiscal year 2015 to provide the additional funds for distributions that need to be made in December. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-19. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardak? Yes. Peg Conway?
Yes.
Bill Doring?
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach?
Yes.
Tom Muething?
Yes.
Ray Warren?
Yes.
Natalie Wolf?
The next item on my agenda is to adjust the service fee for the solid waste collections and recycling. This is going to increase the rate of being charged to Amberley Village residents by 1.94%, which will amount to $2.88 per year. So this, accordingly, I introduce ordinance number 2015-20, ordinance to amend the service fee for,
Ed, on this particular one, if you want this to go into effect on a timely fashion, this particular one, because it's not an ordinance affecting the budget, you will have to waive the three readings.
okay, so we have to make the motion to waive the three readings first. I move that we waive the requirement for three readings of ordinance number 2015-20 regarding the service fee assessment fee.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the three readings on ordinance 2015-20. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardak? Yes. Peg Conway?
Yes.
Bill Doring?
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach?
Yes.
Tom Muething?
Yes.
Ray Warren?
Yes.
Natalie Wolf?
Yes.
Now, I move to adopt ordinance number 2015-20, the ordinance to amend service fee for solid waste collection and recycling in the amount of $2.88 per residence per year. It's in effect.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-20, amending the service fee related to solid waste collection.
One other point I would like to make, that this is the first increase in the fee for solid waste in over 3 years, because effective in 2013, we decreased the service fee for waste collection by approximately 8%, from $13.86 per period to $12.39. So the recycling fee was, or the trash collection fee was $12.39 per quarter, I believe this is.
Yeah, and this all comes about because Amberley Village got into a group of communities and bid this out 3 years ago, and Rumpke won the contract, and as a result, we got a very good rate, and it lowered our price by 8%. That was in effect for 3 years. We then have 2 one-year options under that contract, and what we are effectively doing at this point is exercising one of our one-year options, and then another year we'll have a one-year option. We looked at the market, and it is very, very favorable to exercise the option. This is only a 1.9% increase, so if you consider where we were 4 years ago, we went down 8%. We had that down 8% for 3 years, and now we're going up by 1.9%, so still below where we were 4 years ago.
And as I recall, all the communities that we are in a group with are doing the same thing right now.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-20. Is there any other questions or discussion? If not, if we could call the roll for the approval of ordinance 2015-20.
Rich Bardock? Yes. Peg Conway?
Yes.
Bill Doring?
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach?
Yes.
Tom Muthing?
Yes.
Ray Warren?
Yes.
Natalie Wolf?
Yes.
The next item is to make appropriations for, I'm sorry. Okay. This, okay, 2015-16, 2015-21, excuse me, for annual appropriation for the year 2016, and we wish to make, oh, sorry. All right. Okay, excuse me, back to 2000, the ordinance regarding recycling fee. This ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of public health, safety, and welfare, and it shall have immediate force and effect. The reason for such emergency is to ensure that the solid waste and recycling services continue without interruption, which would otherwise affect the health and safety of village residents, to protect property values and reflect the new rates to take effect January 1, 2016, under the contract with the service provider.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we hereby declare ordinance 2015-20 as an emergency. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock? Yes. Peg Conway?
Yes.
Bill Doring?
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach?
Yes.
Tom Muthing?
Yes.
Ray Warren? Natalie Wolf?
Yes.
And Ed, I do want to just mention that we are continuing to try to limit the number of times that we either waive readings or declare things an emergency, but there will always be cases where that can't be totally avoided. But you know, this council is trying to limit the number of cases where we do that to the bare minimum.
The next item on my agenda is the introduced ordinance number 2015-21, making appropriation for the expenses of the village of Amberley for 2016. We have so moved. And
Second.
Are we going to have Scott go through?
Scott or I can do it.
Yeah, I think before we even have, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance, but I think even before we turn it over to questions, we ought to have some presentation with respect to the budget. So either the village manager or yourself should.
Okay. Well, the proposed budget for this year is $4,425,000 in revenue, which is down from $4.5 million in 2015. Proposed expenses for 2016 are $4,375,000 versus a budget of $4,160,000 for 2015, which will give us a budget surplus of $50,000 for the fiscal year of 2016. A couple of the assumptions which were used is the fact that earnings tax, which were budgeted for 2015, were at $2.8 million, which we realize is not going to be attained. So for this year, the budget of income or tax revenues, excuse me, earnings tax revenues will be $2,650,000. Part of this decrease is attributable to the fact that one of our employers is leaving the community, which will create approximately a $75,000 reduction in the earnings tax revenue for payroll taxes. Property taxes are based upon the estimates from the county auditor and will be approximately 1.8% less than what was collected in 2015. As village manager had mentioned, judge revenue is projected to be $110,000 for this coming year. Additional revenue anticipated for court fines, cell tower rent, and interest. So that is the summary of the revenue assumptions. Do you want to have discussion on that first, or just continue? Okay, anticipated expenses will be $4,375,000, of which in the non-general fund, the general fund for police services includes 20 full-time current positions plus an overlap on the detective position, estimated overtime of $50,000, increased training costs of $25,000, in conjunction with health, education, and welfare. We're going to be doing a deer count flyover, thermal imaging deer count again. We are expecting $1.6 million in revenue from the police levy. There is also going to be $45,000 in police disability and pension fund revenue. $68,000 is budgeted to be expended for new police vehicles and changeover costs. $36,000 for license plate readers, but this is also pending application for some equipment to be returned to the city of Cincinnati, so we may be able to get this at a significantly reduced cost, and $7,500 for a solar speed sign, which will be replacing one of the signs which we see along the roads here, which are battery operated. Fire pay, which is going to be for 24 firefighters. Fire school training for new hires, $8,800 for replacement hydrants, $21,000 for breathing apparatus testing and related costs, $100,000 to replace 23 radios, which is going to be a capital expenditure, $129,000 for the SCBA, which is the self-contained breathing apparatus. We've applied for a grant with that, and $43,000, which is also a capital expenditure for the cascade filling system for the self-contained breathing apparatus. Maintenance, we're budgeting with $30,000 overtime, $30,000 for tree removal, almost $76,000 in salt purchases, right-of-way mowing of $26,000, capital expenditures of $110,000 to replace 2 pickup trucks and a supervisor's vehicle, and $61,000 for the replacement of leaf vacuum, which is broken down several times this particular fall. Administration, which has 5 full-time and 1 part-time position. This year we will have the biannual audit, which will increase our expenditures by $15,000. We have to replace the office copier, which will be in the budget approximately $8,000. Technology, $7,500 in various. We're also budgeting for $75,000 in tax refunds, which has been our standard amount. Land and buildings, mowing of the Amberley Green of $33,000, IT improvements of $27,000, $14,000 for tennis court repairs, $25,000 for consulting for development of Amberley Village owned property, which is both the north side and Amberley Green, almost $98,000 for utilities, capital fund, which includes $200,000 for the salt bin replacement and repair, $29,000 for a new phone system, and other, which will be $20,000 for contingencies, $35,000 for transfer funds for accrued pay time off for retired personnel, transfer $200,000 to the street fund, $150,000 transfer to the capital fund, and expenditures from the street fund, and it ranges from $250,000 to $400,000. And the fund balance will be appropriate in all non-general funds, plus any anticipated revenue, if any.
Okay, before we turn over to questions, Scott, did you want to add anything?
I would just offer that the budget process this year was a result of the department heads submitting their requests to the finance administrator as well as the manager. Those items were vetted internally, And some of those items did not make the list for the 2016 budget. And I think what I'm seeing in the budget is that our greatest need is really on the capital side for those bigger ticket items. And with the resources that we have, we live, we live within those resources, but we also are in a situation where we can only purchase or invest back in the community the resources that we have. So what I find with the budget is that it's a balanced budget. We are operating within our means, but we certainly have a significant amount of additional needs out there. But as the council has worked together the past 4 years on identifying what those needs are, one of the objectives for this next year is to update the financial sustainability plan, which will bring greater focus to what some of our capital needs are. Because this is in this particular business, one thing you want to do is to be able to be nimble and be flexible as the needs change. You want to be able to reflect that, and that's what our updating of the financial sustainability plan will allow us to do, to revisit that capital plan. But overall, the budget is balanced, and we are staying within the dollars that the council has allotted for us.
And the only other thing I would add with respect to process, you mentioned the process that went on kind of on the administration side. On the council side, the Police and Fire Committee met, I think, back in early November to go through the police and fire and all their budget requests, and went through in quite some detail that entire budget. And then the Streets Committee separately met and considered those items on the maintenance side, and again went through that in a fair amount of detail. And then lastly, the Finance Committee met and went through the budget again in a lot of detail. And you know, there's items in the budget that are still need to be worked, and I think the best example of that is the Councilman Hattenbach mentioned $200,000 for the salt dome. We know that something needs to be done with the salt dome, and everyone's very uncomfortable that we have to spend anything close to $200,000. So we're looking for creative solutions to deal with something that is required, and I think we're all very hopeful that we can whittle this thing down. And I think, given the track record of creativeness in the past, I am very confident that someone will come up with something very creative. So with that as kind of, we have one more input, and then we'll turn it over to questions and comments.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted to make a clarification that Mr. Hattenbach mentioned. A grant had been applied for some fire equipment, and in fact, the grant has been received, and it's like $170,000 for firefighting equipment. So that's another example of our staff's creativity.
okay, so that's some input. I think it'd be good that we have some questions now at this point. So, Councilman Warren, do you have a question?
I just had a couple of questions on the capital. This is, I guess, the capital budget, I guess near the last sheet on this report. So actually, a question on the salt dome. So the original anticipated amount was something of the order of $330,000, and so we've allocated $200,000 toward that. Is that something that maintenance believes is reasonable? 'Cause that's it's a big difference between the original
It is,
estimate.
yes. Recall about a year and a half to 2 years ago, the salt dome, or the salt barn that we currently have, it had issues. And so we temporarily shored it up to keep it up for the season, while staff looked at a variety of options for the salt barn. We've exhausted some of those options, but came back to the salt dome, which is the preferred way of storing your salt, but it's the most expensive way to store the salt, and the estimate from the engineer is $335,000. As I went through the budget process, I could not bring myself to put $335,000 into the capital budget for a salt dome, and just believe that there needs to be, there's got to be a different mousetrap that we can look at for this. So from my perspective, I put $200,000 in the budget, trying to drive the point that that's the amount of money we ought to be focusing on at the max. And I'd like to exhaust more options with the engineer and with staff, and hopefully we can come up with something that meets the needs of the village, stores our salt properly, and it keeps us environmentally safe as well, but does not have, we do not incur that significant of an expense.
Thank you. One other question. This has to do, again, on the capital line. This is in regards to the dump truck. And so again, that was something that I guess that was originally considered and is off the capital budget for next year. So does that mean that the dump truck is serviceable, or what's, again, that's another large ticket item, and
This was, the dump truck was scheduled to be replaced in 2016. The financial sustainability plan calls for its replacement this next year. However, with the condition of our smaller trucks, the pickup trucks, something had to go. So in this situation, there are 3 pickup trucks that are being funded, whereas the dump truck is not being funded. So it was a give and take type of process. But that's one of the items that stands out in the budget is not being funded for 2016. From a staff standpoint, we will make that dump truck, extend that life as much as possible.
Other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2015-21, providing for 2016 appropriations. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardak. Yes. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Bill Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
The final item is to introduce resolution number 2015-26 to authorize payment of the Argonaut insurance premium for village insurance. We have gone through the process of reviewing the insurance proposal again for the coming year. The total premium increase is going to be $1,332. At this point, so accordingly, I move that we authorize the village manager to enter a contract with Argonaut for the property and casualty insurance. So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2015-26, authorizing the payment of our property and casualty insurance premium in December of this year. Any questions or comments?
I would like to comment that we opened up bids to other insurance carriers to have them bid on this insurance product. And considering the price that was being quoted by Argonaut and the dollar amount of coverage, most insurance carriers either denied to bid or just refused to bid.
Any other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2015-26, authorizing the payment of our property and casualty insurance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted that the resolution passes unanimously.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda was the evaluation of the village manager for the period October 2014 to September 2015. This is the third year. It's a process that the Compensation and Benefits Committee oversees and develops the forms and so forth. We started this process where the village manager went through a self-appraisal, and then each of the council then met in executive session at our special council meeting on November 24th. They went through that session, and we then prepared the appraisal of the village manager. That appraisal has been shared with the village manager, and so what we would like to do tonight is I would like to make a motion approving the village manager appraisal form as submitted to each of the council members, covering the period October 2014 to September 2015. And this also establishes the agreed specific objectives for the next year. And I think we all found this to be a very valuable process to, as we went through it last year, that we specifically went through and talked about some specific objectives. I mean, obviously, some of the objectives are covered by the village manager's regular job description, like delivering the plan under budget and things like that. But we also went through the specific objectives, and one of those Scott mentioned earlier is the update of the financial sustainability plan within the year. So I hereby move that we approve the village manager's appraisal as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the village manager's appraisal as submitted. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the village manager's appraisal. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that it passes unanimously. We will now move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. I had a couple items I wanted to highlight from the manager's report. This past month, the village did apply for some grants as it relates to Hamilton County Stormwater District. Even though we have our own stormwater district here in the village, we are part of the Hamilton County District, which enables us to use some of their services as well as pay the fee for residents. Our residents aren't charged directly for the Hamilton County fee. Another feature of that is that the Hamilton County Stormwater District has a program of offering grants to communities, and the village was successful 2 years ago in receiving grants for some work throughout the village. So we were able to successfully obtain grants. So we have now applied for an additional grant this past month in the amount of $110,000. This is for 2 stormwater projects that are in the capital budget for the stormwater program. So a decision should be received probably in January, late February timeframe as to whether we were successful in receiving that particular grant. On the other side of the grant application, we did receive our final determination that we did not receive the grant that was applied for through the Ohio Public Works Commission. This was for the Farmcrest subdivision. The streets in that particular subdivision are not in good condition, and we had made application believing that we had a very strong application to submit, but the competition process, only a certain number of applications can be funded. So on November the 10th, we were notified that even though we had appealed the decision, on November 10th, we were informed that their decision stands. So we will revisit our application for the Farmcrest subdivision and try to get the streets repaired, and we'll do that for next year, and staff will see what perhaps can be done differently to the application to make it more attractive and to get additional points. There's been quite a bit of personnel activity. As you saw tonight, you had the opportunity to swear in our newest police and firefighter. But in addition to that, we've also hired a maintenance worker / firefighter. You recall last month we honored Tom Carr with his retirement, and his replacement has been hired. And Mac Ogletree, who is currently employed with the village of Lockland, will be taking that position, and he will begin his duties here in the village on January 12th. And then he will go off to Fire Academy in February in order to be qualified as a firefighter. So we're very excited about Max accepting the position and coming on board. And then one additional personnel information is that long-term Detective Jeff Norton has announced his retirement from the village. Jeff has served the village for the last 25 years. He has been in law enforcement for a total of 33 years. And Jeff's last day will be on January the 8th. And Jeff Norton has been an incredible asset to the village. Has been huge for our police department and has done an amazing job, and he will be greatly missed. We've had some activity and discussion about the North Site. Council approved the North Site agreement a few months ago with Schuerman Properties, and have run into a couple glitches. One of those items was in regards to the property that the Hamilton County owned, and council, at my request, approved the purchase of those properties. And as Hamilton County began looking at some of those properties, they felt like maybe there were some items that they might want to take a closer look at in regards to maybe some right-of-way that they needed. And then there were some other title issues with those properties. So we have extended the purchase agreement with Sherman Properties through January 31st of 2016. And by the same token, I have met with Mr. Sherman, and he has not identified a specific prospect. So this particular project, we're continuing it, staying focused on trying to find a tenant for that property, but we have extended that out to January 31st on the north site. And that concludes the items I wanted to report tonight. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the manager? If not, we will move on to the chief's report.
I'm just going to keep it brief. I just want to mention to council and residents that we actually just had another burglary this year that within the past month up in Roman Estates, where an unknown person kicked in the rear door of the residence. The resident did have an alarm there, but did not operate it, didn't have it on. So what I'd say is if you have an alarm for your house, use it. If you don't, make sure you leave on lights and don't make things so noticeable through the windows. If you have areas in your house that it looks like it's a non-occupied area, such as a storage room that has windows or something, put some kind of curtains up or some type of protection. Those are vulnerable areas for people to break in, because even if you're home, you may not hear them in those areas. And over the past couple weeks, we actually just had another rash of car break-ins. The city of Deer Park did just make a couple arrests again last week, and they actually had a stash house up on Blue Ash Road. So they were living close, and they just go from community to community and keep hitting things. Again, do not leave valuables in your car. Continue to lock the doors. We continue to get calls from residents reporting suspicious activity, but it's always the next day or after they get off work. They might report something, seeing they leave early in the morning to go to the gym or go to work at 3 or 6 or 7 in the morning, and they don't think about calling us till 5 or 6 that night. What we'll do is stress that we want you to make those calls. If we go there and it turns out to be another neighbor or turns out to be nothing, that's okay. That's why we're there. But I'd much rather go out there for 100 calls like that than have to take one burglary report or one car break-in report. So I would stress to residents, continue to report any suspicious activity and make things a lot better for us.
Any questions for the chief?
It seems like Detective Norton is retiring before our next council meeting. Will we have a chance to celebrate his tenure here, or?
I'm not sure at this point if he's going to come back to a council meeting or not. What we'll do is we'll actually recognize him at the next council meeting, whether he's in attendance or not. I've been talking with him whether we're going to have something within the police department. When people retire, some people like to have events and some people don't. We kind of leave it up to them. So at this point, I really don't have anything to share on that. Thanks.
Any other questions? I will keep my mayor's report very short. First, related, I said after Councilman Doring noted that he's going to have to resign, I noted that I would comment on the process that we'll go through to replace Councilman Doring, as well as the vacancy we now have on the Planning Commission. And we definitely want to keep this as open of a process as possible, because especially Councilman Doring's position is an elected position. And so the village manager and I have discussed this, and what we'd like to do is open it up to nominations from council members, nominations from other people, self-nominations, and under our charter, this is an appointment of the council. Council has 2 months to make this appointment, and we very much hope we can make that appointment. Under the charter, it provides that if council can't make the appointment in 2 months, then it becomes a mayor's appointment. But again, we'd like to make this a very public process. We have a very valuable member of council as well as the planning commission to replace. And so the first step will be nominations, either self-nominations or ideas from people. And then I think we will, again, consistent with it having an open process, we will probably have some form of special council meeting where we will go through a vetting process, whether that be interviews or not, we'll have to figure out. But we will endeavor to make this as public as possible. The only other item I wanted to mention is Nicole circulated to all of us the council schedule for 2016 and mentioned in her circulation that we should look at the schedule to note whether there's any interference with holidays or anything, and that if there are any, traditionally we look at in the January meeting to change those. The one that I noticed and again, I don't know all the Jewish holidays, and I apologize for that, but June 13th, and I know I'm going to mispronounce, Shabbat, is on that, and so that might be one that we need to change. But please look at that, and if there are dates that we need to change, we will deal with that at the January meeting. With that, that concludes my mayor's report. Are there any questions on my mayor's report? If not, I know the vice mayor has an item to report under new business.
Yes, thank you. I feel that we can never talk enough about what We Thrive has done for our community. And it just so happens that December has been a very active We Thrive month for Amberley and for all of the We Thrive communities. And for those that don't remember, We Thrive is a county-wide initiative that began in 2009 to make healthy living easier. Hamilton County Public Health engaged schools, businesses, churches, elected officials, and residents to address chronic disease by increasing access to healthy foods and physical activity opportunities while decreasing exposure to secondhand smoke. And this collaboration resulted in numerous policy and environmental changes that will have a lasting impact in our communities. And Amberley was one of the initial, I believe it was 12 communities, and then later expanded to 14 that received up to $24,000 in grant money from We Thrive back in 2009 before it was expanded. And I would like to quote Mayor Tom Muthing, who is actually quoted in the We Thrive newsletter this month about the We Thrive process. And Mayor Muthing says it's a very valuable process. It helps to focus the attention on what needs to be done, and then it is our role to find ways to move forward in a financially responsible way. So We Thrive, it's not just things that you want to do, but We Thrive in Hamilton County Public Health teaches those that are implementing We Thrive in the We Thrive communities how to make things happen. A year ago, We Thrive was expanded from being one umbrella, chronic health, to 4, and then next year in 2016 it was actually going to expand again to take into consideration based on community input, but the heroin epidemic and chronic health is being divided into even more smaller increments. But Amberley took on we already had done chronic health, but we agreed to implement the update our chronic health pathway in addition to taking on the environmental health pathway. And each one of the pathways requires certain action from the We Thrive working group and from councils, where you have to adopt a resolution, then you have to complete an assessment. In our case, we had to complete an environmental health assessment, and for chronic disease, we are in the process of completing a new community health assessment, and then you develop an action plan. And Amberley was last Thursday myself and the mayor and some other members of the community who work, We Thrive, instrumental in implementing the Environmental Health Action Plan from the Environmental Stewardship Committee, Kathy Kramer, Roger Tennis, and, Pete Duffy. And we were recognized at an event sponsored by Hamilton County Public Health, and where we received a proclamation in recognition of our completing the environmental pathway and participating in We Thrive. So, I want to share the proclamation, but I also want to, state that last week I attended the quarterly We Thrive Learning Collaborative, and every community is required to appoint a representative, and 4 times a year we go to Hamilton County Public Health. And there were guest speakers on topics that other communities were interested in, and in this case it was the importance of breastfeeding, the solid waste disposal, and one other thing. But really the most valuable part of the learning collaboratives is when the members of different communities get to talk to each other and ask questions and find out how the different communities have approached particular problems. So in our case, my question was, how do we do something on property that we don't own? And it sparked great discussion on other communities that have done things within their communities, and also brought us back to something we learned 4 years ago, shared use agreement. So it's just an invaluable process, and I'm happy to share the proclamation with Amberley Village. We should all be proud of all the work that's been done as part of this movement. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Vice Mayor? If not, the only other item, is there any other new business? The only other item, and it relates to the manager's evaluation. Similar to last year, 2014, we went through the manager's evaluation, and at the completion of the manager's evaluation, the council then went into executive session to consider the manager's compensation for the next year. So I hereby move that we move into executive session for the consideration of the manager's pay for the year 2016. The manager's contract is it's on a calendar year basis, so it is appropriate that council consider any pay increase at this time. So, as I say, I hereby move that we go into executive session for the sole consideration of the manager's pay.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we go into executive session. Is that an item that requires a roll call vote? Please call the roll call.
Rich Bardak. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Phil Doring.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf. Yes.
And so the council is going to adjourn into executive session. We will come back in after the completion of that executive session, but it is not expected that there will be any other council business. So on behalf of the council, it's a little late to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, but on behalf of the entire council, we do wish everyone a happy holiday season. Thank you.